The action RPG world rumbled when Grinding Gear Games announced Path of Exile 2 during the opening ceremony of ExileCon 2019. Mere weeks after Blizzard's showcase of Diablo 4, Chris Wilson and a few other top-level GGG employees walked on stage, announced Path of Exile 2, and actually played the in-development product in front of the crowd.
That's what was so crazy about it, is like that's always what excites me about games, is whenever people, like, the way they want to show you the game is not by showing you some pre-rendered trailer. They're like, oh, like for example, the Nintendo one for the new Legend of Zelda. It's like it just had some guy that works at Nintendo. He's like, so yeah, so we're making this new game, and so I figure I'll just play it. You guys could look and see like kind of how it is.
People in the venue, Twitch chat, as you can see,
Yep.
even Reddit, were all floored at the incredible addition and reinvention.
Oh yeah,
this
people are very
huge
excited about
expansion
this.
would introduce to one of the best ARPGs out there. 2 campaigns, 1 overhauled game. Even Chris couldn't believe the reception. The rest of ExileCon 2019 went swimmingly. Various developers spoke about their unique philosophy and development process while working on Path of Exile. The best racers in the scene competed to kill Act 5 Kitava first, and ExileCon 2019 ended. From November 2019 to April 2021, GGG remained silent on PoE2's progress, continuing to release consistent expansions to Path of Exile 1. Suddenly, in April 2021, GGG spoke out with an update on Path of Exile 2 and showcased...
I don't really mind the silence about the game because this is the way a lot of developers do things now. And I think it's actually a good way of doing things. It's like you see that with Blue Protocol. They said, hey, we're making this game. All right, well, we'll be back in 2 years. 2 years go by. Hey, yeah, we fixed all the stuff, and there's a beta coming out. Game's coming out this year. All right, see ya. And then they come back. They're like, all right, so this is when it's coming out. And that was it. Rockstar does that well? Yes, exactly. Rockstar. And think about all of the companies that do that are the companies people like. You know, Blizzard used to do that, by the way. They used to never talk about their games, not give updates for their games for like a year, 2 years. And then they're like, hey, by the way, it's coming out. And like back in the day, that's the way that they did things. It was great. And yeah, they used to. And like From Software does that. Rockstar does that. And it looks like the Blue Protocol devs do this. GGG is doing that. And guess what the commonality between all of those developers are? People like them.
portions of the new campaign's second act, a desert area. Again, it looked fantastic. The updated animations, the breathtaking terrain, 2 new weapons, the crossbow and the spear, boss health bars. The community
thank God.
loved it. However, all PoE2 information went dark once again after this showcase. We waited for an update, but none occurred. We continued to wait and wait.
Dude, I love how dramatic he's making this. This is amazing. Yeah, and wait, and wait, and wait.
Until in August 2022, GGG unveiled they'd be fully elaborating on Path of Exile 2 during ExileCon in 2023.
That's going to be next month, by the way, or 2 months from now, July.
Which would be held on July 29th and 30th in Auckland, New Zealand. Since then, we've heard absolutely nothing about Path of Exile 2. In fact,
That's right, because you don't need to. Don't ever tell people shit. Don't overshare. Because the thing is, inside of development, this is what happens, right? Is that inside of development, things change a lot. That's just how it is. So whenever you have a game and like you're constantly broadcasting your development process, people will inevitably get excited or upset about systems that they don't fully understand. Yeah, don't rush the cooks.
nothing truly new has been unveiled since the Act 2 showcase in April 2021, more than 2 years ago. So, what's the deal? For those who don't know Path of Exile's developers, Grinding Gear Games, also known as GGG, too well, you may think they're hiding something. Something negative. Likely, that's wrong. Instead, GGG is traveling a path untraveled by many game developers these days. They're working, waiting, and staying silent on the Path of Exile 2 product so they can...
Well, here's also the reality, is that Last Epoch is very well liked. It's not super popular. Last Epoch is not a massively populated game right now, or popular game right now, but it is well liked. Other than that, though, Diablo 4 has, I would say, overwhelmingly positive reception. Many people are very positive about Diablo 4. And because of how positive they are, PoE knows, Grinding Gear Games knows, that they can't just bring something out and then have it be mediocre. Like, it has to look as good as Diablo 4 and be even more complex.
Focus on delivering and surprising their audience. They have in the past. All the while, they've been dropping decent-sized expansions to Path of Exile 1. Since announcing Path of Exile 2, called the 4.0 expansion by some in the community, as it's going to be a massive addition and overhaul to the main game, GGG has introduced the following 13 expansions to Path of Exile.
And that's another thing they said, is that they were trying to develop PoE 2 side by side with Path of Exile 1. It's not like and I remember Chris Wilson even saying this, that, you know, PoE 2 would have come out faster if they focused entirely on PoE 2, but they didn't want to do that because I think Path of Exile 2 is going to be like Overwatch 2, where it's going to be like a massive overhaul of the game, but it's not going to be like a brand new game in the same way that Dark Souls 2 was a brand new game from Dark Souls 1. Or Mario 2 to Mario 1.
Do note, every single update also includes other minor but meaningful content, like balance changes, new unique items, new skill gems, engine improvements, divination cards, new models, updated graphics, and more. These are only the highlights. We begin. 3.9, Conquerors of the Atlas, in December 2019, was the introduction.
This was a very, very good time. I remember this, dude. I played this so fucking much. Oh my god. I think I probably played this league more than any other league.
Of a new endgame system involving Cirrus and the Conquerors of the Atlas.
Yep.
Multiple different crafting tools, and the Metamorph Build-A-Boss mechanic. It also introduced Awakened support gems and new bow skills. 3.10 Delirium in March 2020 added the Delirium mechanic.
I didn't play Delirium. I kind of wish I did.
Changed mapping forever and let us use cluster jewels on our passive skill tree to make our own passive skill trees.
I feel like cluster jewels are a bit much. Maybe they're okay, but I feel like they're a bit much.
3.11 Harvest in June 2020 gave us one of the most powerful and deterministic crafting systems in Path of Exile.
Yep, and they spent every patch after that nerfing it.
That still exists in the game to this day, albeit in a nerfed state. 3.12 Heist in September 2020 rolled out a brand new chunk of endgame in the form of heists.
I think I didn't really like Heist. Personally, I think a lot of people didn't really like it. Personally, it's just like, it's not my kind of gameplay. But for a lot of people, they do enjoy it. Good for them. And I think that's fine.
Allowing us to discover new forms of every single gem in the game, old and new. Loot brand new item bases.
It's actually a very good point. Yeah, the anomalous and like the other like alternate quality. I forgot what the other one was. Those types of gems are really interesting and divergent. Yeah, there you go. Divergent and anomalous gems actually added so much gameplay.
And upgrade a host of rogues in an endless experience similar to delving and mapping.
Yeah.
3.13 Echoes of the Atlas in January 2021 presented players with the Maven
Ritual, I think,
fight and the idea of capturing bosses, then fighting them all at once in a grand arena, the Maven's Crucible. Plus, it added the Atlas passive skill tree, allowing us exiles to customize our endgame experience to our liking.
Well, you also have to remember, like, the Atlas skill tree, all of that, they reworked a lot of the endgame systems. Like, I remember whenever they made the announcement for this this big patch, it was huge. Like, they reworked fucking, they reworked Bestiary, they reworked Incursion, they reworked fucking, like, every endgame system, and they completely changed a number of endgame systems, too. It was great. I miss Atlas zones. Yeah, like back in the day, you used to have to like do things off of the Atlas and do certain maps on the Atlas and shit like that.
Unlike any other game out there. Plus, in-game ritual, a new way to barter and earn items while killing monsters. 3.14 Ultimatum in April.
I love this one. I'm going to be totally honest. I fucking loved Ultimatum. The only thing I didn't like about it is sometimes you couldn't see what was going on. Because it was like such a small space and you would just be killed by something you couldn't see. Yeah, Ultimatum was fucking awesome though.
2021 surprised us with an amazing risk-reward mechanic overseen by the wickedly sly Trial Master.
Yep.
And added multiple new powerful gems to the game, like Reap, Exsanguinate, Petrified Blood, and Corrupting Fever. All are used to this day in a variety of builds.
Yeah, a lot of people use Petrified Blood.
3.15 Expedition in July 2021 dropped in a
I've never done an expedition before.
gripping new narrative, a brand new content system called
Or like a
Expedition,
logbook, I mean.
and heavily reworked numerous pieces
I've done
of
Expeditions,
character
of
power.
course.
The changes are still controversial to this day. 3.16 Scourge in October 2021 summoned forth the Scourge faction and allowed us to clear our areas a second time. But the second run was in a literal hellscape. The League also heightened the skill ceiling with new forms of Uber content for Blight, Legion, Breach, and Delirium. 3.17 Siege of the Atlas in February 2022.
It's actually kind of crazy, like, whenever this guy lays it all out, how much shit has happened in PoE in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, it's nuts.
Brought forth another huge improvement to Path of Exile's mapping system and gave us 4 new pinnacle bosses. It also added Eldritch currency to the game, which let players of all types craft on their gear.
Yep.
Plus, it began the revamp of rare monsters with the introduction.
I think the best thing about Eldritch currency is the fact that it's so easy to use. So, like, it gets casual players. It's a very good way to get casual players into modifying their gear.
Of Arch Nemesis. 3.18 Sentinel
play
in
Arch
May
Nemesis.
2022 added new ways to buff monsters using Sentinels, completely reworked rare monsters, as just alluded to before, added 7 uber versions of bosses to the game, and let us play with Recombination, a new crafting system that smashed items together to create something new but familiar. 3.19 Lake of Calandra in August 2022.
I did play Lake of Calandra a pretty good amount. I didn't go super hard on it.
Introduced a new map building mechanic to the game, allowing us to enter the Lake of Calandra and make powerful rings and amulets.
Yeah, this one, I feel like this one didn't really get very well received. It was an interesting idea, but it just didn't really hit the mark.
It also further reworked rare monsters, completely changed.
Yeah, I think that the reason why people didn't like Lake of Calandra is actually not even because of the Lakes of Calandra, it's because of the Arch Nemesis change. People were really angry about that.
Changed the Beyond mechanic and replaced the old monsters with the Scourge, and rebalanced hundreds of unique items, swapped the value of Divine Orbs and Exalted Orbs, and changed around Harvest crafting.
I actually am glad that they changed Divine and Exalted Orbs, by the way, because I liked how I like the idea of Exalt slamming a piece of gear. I actually think it's good.
2.0 The Forbidden Sanctum in December 2022 launched a roguelike dungeon into Path of Exile, added one of the first character power enhancing account-bound items into the game, further reworked rare monsters, and walked back on the term Arch Nemesis, massively buffed a set of endgame unique weapons, retooled jewels, ailments, and a few other systems, and added Ruthless, a new game mode for Path of Exile with extreme item scarcity and numerous reworked or removed mechanics. And finally, we've reached...
I will say that, like, Ruthless is... People can shit on Ruthless as much as they want, but one thing I can say about Ruthless is that the visibility in the game is better just because there's less going on. And I do think that is an improvement in that way.
The present. 3.21 Crucible in April 2023 added the Crucible weapon combining mechanic to the game, reworked 2 former large mechanics, Breach and Abyss, did a pass on passive skill tree masteries, and completely changed up two ascendancies, the Pathfinder for the Ranger,
Yeah, a lot of people
and the
played that.
Saboteur for the Shadow.
That's what I played.
Those are the 13 major expansions to Path of Exile 1 since Path of Exile 2's announcement at the end of patch 3.8 Blight in November 2019.
I didn't play Blight.
Although GGG has been almost entirely silent about Path of Exile 2,
I think that the real truth here is that they've been developing Path of Exile 2, and we've been playing it. I think that if you look at what we've gotten, especially the last year or so with PoE, that's what we're going to get with Path of Exile 2. They are transitioning the game to Path of Exile 2. It's not like they're going to make this new game and it's going to be totally different.
They cannot stop talking about and updating Path of Exile 1 because they are the same game, folks.
There you go.
Path of Exile 2 is a giant expansion to Path of Exile 1.
Yeah, it's Overwatch 2.
Both campaigns will lead into the same endgame. All this work they're doing.
I don't like how you have to do you have to do the old campaign in order to get the ascendancies, the old ascendancies and stuff.
All this great content they're adding and iterating on will likely be in Path of Exile 2 in some form. Us exiles will be able to slay the Maven as a werewolf. We'll be able to zoom through maps with a crossbow shouting about bolts.
I do think they should slow the game down a bit. I think there's just too many things happening in the game, and there's like too many different types of effects. Like, for example, do we really need bleed and corrupted blood? I personally don't think so. I think just one of them is fine. Yeah, just let's remove some of the abilities, make the ones that exist more punishing, meaningful, and easy to see. Get rid of some of the unnecessary stats, and then start over and build up from that. You don't understand the difference then? Oh, I understand it completely. I'm just saying that it's like there are a lot of instances. Like, for example, let's see. I think spell block and spell suppression should be combined. Like, you should not need resistance, spell block, and spell suppression. Like, this is insane. You need 3 different stats to do the exact same thing, basically. That's 2 different things. Block is for using a shield. One reduces, one eliminates. I think that it's a bit much. Like, then that's fine. Okay, let's say spell block is not the complete thing. Like spell suppression and resistances. I don't think that we need spell suppression. It's an unnecessary stat. You don't need spell suppression. It's crazy. Yeah, it's semantics. Who gives a shit? Circle jerking complexity. Yes. There are a lot of stats in PoE that I think if you took them out of the game and made the other existing stats more important, the game would just simply be better. Like light radius should not be in the game. Nearby and close should not be in the game. The delineation between less and is it less and fewer or decreased? Less and decreased and increased and more. This should not exist. It's stupid. Many don't play it because it's too complicated. Yes, and I think that I don't think that this makes PoE easier as a game. I just think it makes it better. Like, you should not continuously just add more complexities into a game with no context as to, like, how is this complexity adding, how is this adding any value to the game? Is this making the game better, or is it just making it more complex? It's cluttering the experience. Yes, it's very cluttered. Like recovery and recoup rates. Yeah, exactly.
We'll have boss bars for our favorite foes, from Cirrus to the Eater of Worlds. We'll progress through the core campaign, battling Merveil, Dominus, Kitava, and more with the updated gem system. So, why the silence on Path of Exile 2 from GGG? They'd rather show.
Silence.
It's a meme in the Path of Exile community to answer every problem, minor or massive, with the line, PoE 2 will fix it. GGG stated during their initial and second announcement, that Path of Exile 2 will indeed solve some things. Problems with the skill gem system, poor animations, outdated graphics, outdated design, and numerous other areas
Yeah,
of
I will definitely say that the animations and everything in Diablo 4 are, like, infinitely better. Like, it just way, way, way fucking better. The game looks way better to play.
game, but they've backed up those statements with evidence, with ideas. We know how they're seeking to improve their game, because when they're asked and choose to answer, their answers are concrete about Path of Exile 2, and frankly, about Path of Exile 1. They're adding and experimenting in Path of Exile 1 while developing and iterating Path of Exile 2. Otherwise, they're silent. They don't want to talk boldly about Path of Exile 2. They want to show us how they're going to make an amazing expansion and overhaul to Path of Exile. They take the "when it's ready" line very seriously when it comes to Path of Exile 2, and we're going to witness that firsthand on July 29th of this year.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, like, I think that it really depends on what happens. I will say, I think that a big issue in PoE, like, I saw a lot of posts about this league, is that people played the game and it was just simply too fast. There was too much going on. And there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, I just don't want to play. It's too much. Straight up. And I don't think that it's I don't think it's a situation where, like, oh, it's just boomers that are mad because they're bad at the game. I think it actually is too much. There's too much going on. It's too hard to figure out what's happening. There's too many buffs, too many debuffs. It's just too much. And I wish we could go back to, like, I don't know, like 2016, 2015, somewhere around there. I felt like the game was a lot more cohesive and it was easier to understand what's happening. I can confirm. I can find it's super hard to understand. Yeah, it's hard to understand. Just get good? Well, people don't want to get good. Like, I remember, here's a good way to look at it, right? I remember whenever I would play PoE, my eyes would hurt. And this is before I started playing Wardloop, by the way. The reason why my eyes would hurt is that I was afraid to blink, because if I blinked, I could die. It's insane. Yeah, you blink, you die. Yeah, what the hell? And it's like there's like 50 other things that are happening. It's too much.
In April 2021 and November 2019. When Chris Wilson walks out on stage at ExileCon 2023, he may be passionate, tearful even, but he will be confident in the game he's about to showcase to the world.
I think so.
As he was at ExileCon in 2019.
Absolutely.
He believes in his team of developers. Grinding Gear Games is putting in the time and effort to ensure Path of Exile will outlast the competition, new and old. In the next few...
I think Path of Exile 2, like, if you are an ARPG Andy, and you really care a lot about ARPGs, you will probably get more out of Path of Exile than you will out of Diablo 4. And you want to play it, you want this to be like your main game. This is the game that you play 8 hours a day for the better part of the season. Then I would absolutely say that PoE 2 would be that game. And Diablo 4 isn't trying to be that game. And I don't think that it should.
Few months leading up to ExileCon 2023 and the latest information on Path of Exile 2, I'm going to provide everyone with an in-depth, interesting history of Path of Exile and Grinding Gear Games. This is merely a preface to that. I hope you'll join me these next few months for my PoE 1 flashback series and get seriously excited about the future of this incredible game. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe for more Path of Exile content, and check out my other videos. Tala Moana, fellow exile.
Oh, I remember that guy. They got rid of him. Yeah. The beta is literally the campaign. I mean, like, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm really kind of curious to see what's going to happen, but I am very, very excited for Path of Exile 2. I will tell you this. I have been super fucking excited. You know, Copium from both BOE, D4 and PoE stands in his chat. Well, I don't really see the problem, like, because the thing is, these seasons, like, the way that I usually play PoE or Diablo 4 is I play the games to a plateau and then I stop. So, like, after you play the game to a plateau, why not just play the other game? I don't see that being an issue. Like, there can be a symbiotic relationship here. It's not like they all have to exist in the exact same way. So, yeah, it seems weird to me that people are trying to, like, say, oh, it's going to kill Diablo 4 or not. I think that for hardcore ARPG fans, they're going to want to play something like PoE. And for the more casual player base, they're going to want to play something like Diablo 4. And that's totally fine. It's the same as, like, Valorant is a lot less complex than Escape from Tarkov. Does that make Escape from Tarkov better? No. It's just a different audience.